Back on the floor of NAB 2022, I'm here in the LucidLink booth talking with Peter, who is you are like the head honcho, is that right?
Well, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO.
Can you fire anybody?
I've never tried. I don't know. I'll have to ask somebody.
You probably don't need to. LucidLink is an amazing piece of technology that I learned about several years ago at NAB New York when I was told about it, and it was cloud storage for everything, just almost like a hard drive mounted on your system. But let me ask, is that a fair assessment if I tell someone, think about cloud storage like a hard drive mounted locally on your system, that your software sees like a locally mounted volume, but it's all in the cloud. Is that sort of a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I think, well, one of the things that people would specifically ask us, they'd say, I really love object storage. I love my S3, wherever that was, whichever flavor that was. I just would like to mount it like a drive. And so that's what we enable. The big difference that we enable, though, is not just showing you what's in the drive and then having to download, upload, pushes, pulls, gets, but rather we then stream that data on demand. So we present it as if it's local and let you use it as if it's local, both from a usability standpoint and a performance standpoint.
So I think it's an important distinction. This is not Dropbox. This is not box.net or box.com or whatever, because it is seen like almost the entire file, as opposed to like if I want to use this 92 gigabyte file, you do not have to right click and say sync, or you don't have to wait for the thing to spin for it to sync, because it just grabs what it needs out of that file. Is that kind of how it works?
That's exactly right. So it's different from sync technologies. We present the entire data set, but we only have to deliver the portions of the file, not even entire files, that are being used as they're used. But then we implement some other technologies like prefetching and local disk caching to improve the performance. But we'll have a lot of customers tell us that it performs better than their local NAS. And the whole idea for us was that as creators used to be in an office, they're used to being on a LAN, going to a file server or a NAS, and now that they're working from home overnight, everyone started working, with remote technologies. They didn't have to change their workflows. They would just connect to the internet. Instead of going to the D drive, they go to the L drive, or instead of going to their file server mount, they would go to the Lucid mount, and they would continue doing their job as if they were back in the office. So that muscle memory stays intact, their workflows stays intact, and that's why I think we've got users who really like it so much.
Well, in the video world, let's think about a video project. You may have, several hundred megabytes or gigabytes of music, graphic files, lower thirds, like all the stuff that makes up, as well as hundreds upon thousands of very, very large video files.
Yes.
Now, one thing when I talk about LucidLink, people ask me about how can you put terabyte upon terabyte of video media up into LucidLink? And I answer sometimes like, I don't know, it's magic. But if someone asked you that question, how would you answer that? They said, I have 12 terabytes of this show I'm working on.
Yeah.
There's going to be 4 or 5 editors working on it.
Right.
Can we put all of that into LucidLink?
Oh, you can easily put all of that into LucidLink. We've got customers with petabytes of data in LucidLink. We've got partnerships with with all of the hyperscalers. We've got.
Wait, what does that mean when you say hyperscalers? What is that?
So I'm talking about AWS S3, Google Cloud Storage, IBM, Wasabi, Backblaze. Anyone who is S3 compliant with object storage, we can use as the back end.
But that's transparent to the user, right? Like if someone signs up for LucidLink account and they want to put 12 terabytes up in there, is it transparent for the user, or do they have to do some kind of setup that's a little bit geeky and nerdy to make it work?
Yeah, well, actually we have both flavors available. Some of our customers do like to get geeky and nerdy, or they have corporate mandates, or they already have a big contract inked that they want to use those credits. So you can bring your own storage account and associate the LucidLink service with that account.
Okay.
Or for those, and a lot of customers might not have those cloud skills. They might not have somebody specifically who wants to deal with setting up a bucket and creating the IAMs and locking it down and doing all the permissioning. For those, we have a fully curated service that will provide the storage along with our service. So either way.
Now, When you talk about putting a lot of media into the cloud, there has to be an upload at some point. Like you can't just magically put 12 terabytes into the cloud without it getting uploaded at some point. So the bottleneck for an end user is probably going to be, I'm thinking like maybe smaller, not big corporations, but in like smaller production companies that are working these days.
Yeah.
Is that the bottleneck, the upload for most people?
Sure. So we view this as not a transport mechanism, but we are having a single source of truth in the cloud and then accessing it from anywhere as if it's local.
Right,
so getting it into the cloud absolutely is the first step. You have to do that.
Yeah.
Sadly, we haven't figured out how to break the laws of physics yet.
No.
So it is whatever your upload link is, that's what we'll support. Now, we do a great job of saturating bandwidth. We use multiple TCP streams, and we do inline compression, and we do all kinds of things that will allow you to make the best use of your available bandwidth. But it is whatever your speed of wire is how fast you can get it up into the cloud.
Yeah, and I think about like home usage. A lot of people working from home. I just went from a 12 meg up Comcast connection to a gigabyte AT&T fiber connection.
Yes.
And I think when that happens to an end user, suddenly something like this, like it changes your view of something, using something like LucidLink for large things like that. Let me ask you another question. Some of that video, the media that may be up there, if it's I know a lot of jobs that are putting lots of proxies. I know other jobs that don't use proxies. They want to cut with like a piece of 4K media.
Yep.
Can that live in LucidLink as well?
Oh yes, absolutely.
It takes longer to retrieve a 4K clip, even if you're just scrubbing around in the timeline, than it does a proxy. Will the end user see a little bit of lag depending on their bandwidth down?
The user experience will depend on whatever bandwidth they have and the size of the files that they're using. So most of our customers make use of proxies as well as raw footage. So depending on your connection, probably at your gigabit Ethernet home connection, you could edit 4K video and not have any concerns whatsoever.
And that's 4K in the cloud.
4K in the cloud.
Let me ask you this: are more LucidLink customers like big corporations, or are you scaling down to smaller? Are you like single editors or small production companies that are working with multiple editors? Is it like? I guess you love all customers.
We do love all the customers. It's so easy to set up and try. I mean, we've got a 2-week trial. People come in, they give it a go. Probably half the customers don't even reach out to us. They put in their credit card and they just start using it. And that's usually the smaller end of the scale. We're talking 3, 4. Sometimes even professional photographers or 3-4 person post-production houses, or even we've got a group of gamers who use us to store stuff on. But then yes, we'll scale up to some of our larger customers that have thousands of users, petabytes of data across continent, even across multiple continents. So it scales from the very small to the very large.
Gotcha. And two more questions. First one is on like cost, because for a small production company,
yep.
Like are you charging by how much you're uploading, or the bandwidth over the course of usage, or how do you pay for that?
Well, the bandwidth or the egress, that's a fact of life from the cloud companies. We're not doing that, but we have to either pass that on when we provision the storage with our service, or if you've got your own account, you'll be paying them that. We do a lot to mitigate that, though, because remember, you're not downloading entire files. You're downloading portions of files. You're locally caching it, so you're not having to constantly refresh that or re-download that. So there's a lot that we do to mitigate that, and we're working on some partnerships. So, for example, when you purchase storage through us, we have special negotiated prices that we pass on to the user to reduce that. But in terms of our pricing model, we charge based on the amount of capacity that's in the system.
Gotcha. Well, when you talk about, one more question to add to that. When you talk about caching locally,
yep.
The technical side on the system you're working on, cache probably defaults to the system drive, but is it recommended for the video world when you've got a lot of data moving back down to put a cache onto like a large RAID or onto a fast SSD?
So yeah, this is a great question. we already have a lot of people who will add a fast drive, NVMe drive that's big enough and locate your cache on there. Actually, the larger the cache is, that kind of becomes your working set, so that tends to improve both performance and reduce egress costs. But as the world is moving back to a hybrid production type of life, and people are going back into the office, one of the things that is on our near-term roadmap is a shared site cache. So if you've got 10 people in the office, you'll be able to locate a dedicated cache that they'll all share. So if you think about what we do today is we give everyone their own individualized cache on device. When you're in the office, instead of going to cloud, if it's not in the cache and warming it up from there, it'll first check and see if it's on the site cache. If it's not there, it will go in the cloud. But the beauty of this is that if you're from home, you'll just operate like you normally would. When you come into the office and get on the LAN, it will automatically find things as it normally would. So again, what we're trying to do is just remove all the complexity of having to deal with what files are where and how to move them around from the end user.
So that's actually a lot of things going on. I see a Premiere project over your shoulder on the monitor, and you've got the LucidLink software running, pulling this stuff from the cloud, caching it locally. Premiere is in the timeline calling for a file, so it's looking to sort of LucidLink because it's mounted like a drive. Then LucidLink checks if it's in the cache. If it's not, it's got to grab it from the cloud. It's a lot going on, but it's not. You don't see lag from it. It's pretty instantaneous. Like it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing that even works.
Well, that's what we hear all the time. People saying this can't work. It shouldn't work. Why is it working? I think we feel that we've done our job if it disappears. The more that people don't have to think about storage, deal with storage, know where their files are, and it just works, then we know we've been successful.
Okay, and the last thing you told me a few minutes ago as we were chatting before we started, the new LucidLink version 2, it used to be you kind of had a ceiling of, what did you say, like 100 million files in a bucket or in a
single namespace.
And tell me what you were telling me, because I was kind of like, holy moly, that's, I don't think about, I have large editing projects, but I've never had 100 million files that I know of.
Well, in some sense, we're a little bit of a victim of our own success. We didn't expect that customers would scale this quickly, in such a short period of time. And while we originally architected the system to deal with tens of millions of files, maybe up to 100 million files, because that's really the limitation, not the capacity, but numbers of files. We started running into that a lot sooner than expected. So we re-architected our data layout and the entire LucidLink service. And now, yes, we just rolled that out last month is when we released 2.0. And then now it will scale up to tens of thousands of users. It will scale up to billions of files. And not only that, but because of the changes we made what is already a very fast system an order of magnitude faster.
Okay.
And especially dealing with lockings when you're complex software packages that deal with locking mechanisms and whatnot. Those have all been improved.
Gotcha. Well, there you go. It is a cloud world, and we are just living in it. And it sounds like, at least for the post-production side of things, LucidLink is a cool option for the cloud world. Peter, thanks and good luck, and keep scaling, because I like to hear that.
We will try. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.